What's shaking, everybody? Welcome to I don't even know what day it is. Is it Tuesday? Is it Wednesday? It's a day in the week. We're glad to have you here on House Divided. I'm Jeff Ketchum. That is Chad Hastings. Do us a solid. Hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, get notifications, and by all means, let's get interactive today in the Specs chat. And we do love our partnership with Specs. If you're looking for delivery, if you're just looking to get some stuff for the party this weekend or whatever, you're going wine shopping, go check them out over at Specs. They are as good of a partner as we have. We do love them a lot. A lot of portal discussion today, Chad. In fact, do you want to do it?
I think we probably should.
You want to do it? Come on now.
I think we probably should.
Hit it.
Fight! Get over here! Finish him!
Yeah. Portal Combat. We're 5 days away. Now, Billy Bob would tell you we're 10 days away from the spring game, but it's only 5 days till the portal opens. And they're changing these rules every 5 seconds, but here's how I understand it. You can get out of the portal whenever you want, and you can tell somebody you're going in the portal whenever you want, but there's only a 5-day window to officially get in, and that's the 15th through the 20th. So we're 5 days away from that official moment where you're hearing this, you're hearing that. It becomes official. It can be official on the 15th, and obviously that's right around everybody's spring game, so there's a lot of energy and shake-up coming in college football.
So the last day is the 20th that you can enter. That is the Texas spring game, right? So
correct.
Everybody needs to be prepared for next week. There could be, before the spring game, a flood of names at Texas.
Yeah.
Because the Longhorns need at least 4 to leave just to get under the 85-man number as it stands. If they want to add anybody into the portal, they'll need more. The thinking is it's probably going to be 5, 6, maybe 7 guys. So, as we get ready to talk about Bear Alexander and what's going on there, man, that is a fascinating story because he was at practice for USC yesterday.
Wow.
And he's been practicing with USC. It sounds like it caught USC completely off guard. But yeah, be prepared that next week is probably going to be a real portal combat heavy week of shows because the way the window is set up, unless you explained it incorrectly, guys have to be in the portal the day of the spring game. I suppose it's possible that a guy could play in the spring game and then be like, okay, now I'm in the portal. But it would make a lot more sense to actually declare before the spring game. I don't know. It'll be a confusing one depending on what your school does. Again, USC's in the middle of practice themselves right now. Sounds like Bear Alexander had missed a couple of practices, but was there yesterday, and the word breaks out that he's going to enter the portal, and USC people are like, what? What's going on? Come on, Bear. Like, you're a starter for us. Why? So we'll get into the Bear Alexander conversation here in a second. Tom G hits us with a $10 super chat. We want to encourage everybody hop into the super chat. He says, wow, Alex's write-up on the Bear was fantastic. Alex has changed my mind. Sign him up. Basically, that's a free advertisement for orangebloods.com from Tom. He's letting you know that Alex has an article over at Orange Bloods that he posted, I think, in the last couple of hours, centered around Bear Alexander, that we won't read on the air. So it's a good reason to go over to orangebloods.com. A lot of Bear Alexander discussion. I'll probably have an update on Bear on the website later today. I'm still waiting. I'm waiting to hear from a couple of sources on a couple of different fronts. But as we mentioned, or as I mentioned yesterday in the modcast, live on the air, Chad, did you see that? I got a text from one of my good sources where I was like, no way Texas and Bear Alexander happen, right? And then in the middle of the show, I got the text that said "Yes way," and I was like,
Yes way.
"Okay, yes."
There it is.
Well, we've been able to get a little bit more information on Bear Alexander and his situation over the course of the last 20 hours or so. And there's no doubt about it. The Longhorns are interested in Bear, and Bear is interested in the Longhorns. This is my reading of the tea leaves. Nobody has come out and, and I think Bear's got a pretty good idea of who he's interested in. I can't yet confirm who the competition is, although it's got maybe a potential like Jabbar Muhammad feel to it. But I think that the Longhorns are very interested. I don't think they're going to chase. They're not going to bend over backwards. I think there's a way where this could happen where Bear Alexander ends up at Texas. But it's not like a free-for-all. They're not going to, I think, be involved in a hat game or anything like that. I think that if he's interested in going to Texas, they can make that happen. And we'll see. I don't think the Longhorns are the only school involved. I don't think it's going to be like he's looking at 5 schools and, he'll take a bunch of official visits and go from there. It sounds like, and it does sound like he's leaving USC, although he hasn't entered the portal yet. And I do think, I don't know that NIL is driving the train here the way that it has the previous 2 decisions for Bear Alexander, both going to Georgia and USC. There was a little bit of like highest bidder, highest NIL package thing that was going on there. It may be that he wants to get home a little close to Texas, although we heard that about Jabbar Muhammad as well, right? When Jabbar Muhammad first entered the portal, one of the things I heard from someone very close to the Washington program was it sounds like he wants to get closer to home. And in the end, he went to Oregon. It wasn't really any closer to home than he had been before. So we'll wait and see how this thing happens, but there's definite interest. One of the things I've been trying to figure out, we had a source that's not like somebody that I go to on a regular basis, but there's, it's not just Bear Alexander, Chad, that the Longhorns are looking for. I think there's some hope that Michigan defensive tackle Kenneth Grant, who's a junior this year, profiles a little bit like Bear Alexander. He's 6'3", 340. He's a big boy.
Yeah, and that'd be bigger than where Bear's. I'm seeing Bear listed at like 6'3", 300, 6'3", 310, 15, something like that.
So, we'll Kenneth Grant is a guy that I think Texas fans have been talking about for months. We're almost at like D-Day. There's only a 5-day window. It's not like that thing stays open for 2 weeks. I need to check with my Michigan people to get an update on what they think about Kenneth Grant, because the sense I've gotten from Michigan people is they don't think there's an issue with Kenneth Grant. And it's almost been like, well, maybe Texas fans and people have a little bit of insight that they don't. We'll see. Bear Alexander's going into the portal, and it doesn't sound like there's anything that USC can do to stop that, but we've heard that before. The thing that USC has now, Chad, is they've got 5 days to talk him out of it. They've got a 5-day heads up. He can't do anything for 5 days anyway. So is he still going to go to practice? Is he done going to practice? It's a little bit of a unique situation, but I would imagine that USC will spend the better part of the next week trying to see if they can keep him out. But there's no doubt from what I'm hearing that the Longhorns will and would be interested if Bear Alexander enters the portal. And it is a little bit of a left turn at Albuquerque from where things might have been a year ago. But as I think multiple people pointed out on the modcast yesterday, a lot of guys left. A year ago, they had Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat, and they felt like their depth at defensive tackle was in a completely different position than it looks now. Things can change, and I think this is one of them.
Thanks, everybody, jumping in the Specs chat. We're up over 300 already. Get you some more chats. This discussion, obviously, very interesting to Longhorn fans today. Catch mentioned Specs. Let's let you see a little bit more from Specs. Remember to get stocked up.
You're needing Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
And thanks to Tom G again for that super chat that we got in regarding Bear Alexander. How about this one, Catch, from Vivek? How much you thinking we would need to pay Bear versus Kenneth Grant NIL-wise? You said you thought NIL maybe isn't the driving factor, but do you hear anything like that when you're talking to sources about these guys? And I'm sure you talk about, is NIL important or not? Do numbers come up?
Not a ton. You know, it's like talking to people don't like to talk about their money, period. Right. It's not like
understand that
down. If me, you and a bunch of guys got together to watch some hoops coming up, NBA playoffs or the NFL draft or whatever, the conversation wouldn't break down to, you know what I made last month? Like, that's just not things that happen. And I think on the NIL front, you know, there's always some concern that if some specifics get out that that maybe upsets people in the locker room. You know, I think that there's a couple of things here that are really important. I think, you know, people have brought up Walter Nolan, and Texas didn't make a play at Walter Nolan. That wasn't one of the things that happened because Walter Nolan got paid, like really paid. I think there's a sense that to get Walter Nolan, you would have needed to pay. He would be the highest paid Longhorn on the team if he's getting Walter Nolan Ole Miss money. And there's this sense of like, look, first of all, I think Texas, after the first few years of kind of wild, wild west on the NIL front, I think they feel like they got their mojo down. They know how they want to operate. They know how there are guys on the team that aren't making a ton of NIL money. We could point to Jaden Blue from a year ago, but perform on the field and enhance your viability and like your importance to the team, and the NIL money will come. I think I think they feel like they've got a system in place that they like. It's working. I don't think they're going to do anything to break that, which is why they didn't go after Walter Nolan. Walter Nolan is a defensive tackle. He absolutely is like probably the best player at the need position that they have, but it wasn't viable for all of those reasons. And I'm not hearing that Walter Nolan and Bear Alexander are the same on the NIL front. So I think there's a feeling that whatever Bear Alexander would want, Texas would be comfortable with. I think they feel like they could probably make that happen. If it turns into a bidding war of any kind, and it kind of did, you know, we bring up Jabbar Muhammad, that kind of did. And I think Texas felt like, well, look, we're not going to get into that because if we pay Jabbar Muhammad what Oregon wanted to pay Jabbar Muhammad, like every guy on our team is going to be walking into Sark's office or making phone calls to NIL and saying, whoa, I just started on a team that went to the playoff. Like, I want what he's getting. So one of the ways that you make this thing in the NIL world work in 2024 in a college scene, all these guys know what each other's making. They really do. Like, we might not talk about it, but they do. And so whatever it is, it won't be Bear Alexander reestablishing what NIL looks like at Texas. I think he's got to thread a needle on this. If he wants to come back to Texas, if he's willing to take what he'd probably make on an NIL scene at Texas, and the coaches feel like this isn't going to disrupt the makeup of the team, then I think this thing could very easily happen. A week ago, I would have been like, you're crazy. They're not going to do Bear. But now I get the sense that there's some real interest, but it's got to go a certain way. And if it starts to turn into a sideshow at all, then I wonder how long they'll hang into it. Again, there's also this thought that Kenneth Grant from Michigan end up in the portal. I get the sense that Texas would make a play for both, that there's thought that they could make both happen. And then we'd be doing a show next week around the time of the spring game, and maybe the defensive tackle position feels a lot different by then. Should those things happen? There are names that are being talked about. There are names in the grapevine of college football's NIL rumor mill and the portal rumor mill that are out there, but we have to see it. It has to actually happen. And look, the portal hasn't opened. These guys are all practicing in spring football. Again, makes the Bear Alexander thing really weird because he was at USC's practice yesterday, and the word kind of came out, and there was a lot of befuddlement over at USC with regards to, what do you mean? He's practicing. And we weren't expecting this to be a thing on April 9th. Well, it was. It'll be a thing in the coming days. But the word I definitely get is that Bear Alexander has every intention of entering the portal.
The one thing we do know that's good news out of this story, Catch, is that of all the coaches in America who can deal with the media asking questions out of nowhere, Lincoln Riley is right up at the top. Like, he loves dealing with the media. He's never snarky. So I'm sure that went well yesterday at the end of USC.
Well, practice. And you'll get asked about it if there's even media availability at USC, but
yeah, if I'm their SID, I'd have kicked everybody out the moment the rumors started. I just would have kicked them all out, taken the blame myself, because there's no way.
Think he spoke to the media yesterday. We don't have a Lincoln Riley response to any of this. But here, real quick, I'm out of curiosity. I haven't looked it up.
No, look it up.
Did you look up when USC spring game is?
I've not looked up their spring game date. That's actually
April 20th.
It's the 20th. Okay, so there you go. It's on the same.
So he has to be in the portal.
It's the same day. Okay, so, and also, Catch, let's clarify, because I was incorrect about one thing. It's 5 days until it opens, but let's remember, there's two different portal windows, a 30-day and a 15-day. So this is 15th to the 30th.
Right.
That's right. That's my bad if if people kind of misinterpreted that. So the spring game on the 20th will happen, and there's still 10 more days where you can get to enter. So they expanded that. It used to be tight. It used to be just a few days, but I had forgotten. They expanded that out. We have a 30-day. Remember the 30-day around championship game, and there's a 15-day now.
Way to go, Chad. You got me all screwed up in the head.
Exactly. So I want to make sure we're not doing that. But it makes total sense because the 20th is a spring game. I think Clemson's was like last weekend, and there's going to be some that are
a lot of spring games on the 20th
that are later, right? The 20th, and that makes sense. The 20th, your spring game happens, and then you and your coaches get a chance to take a breath, have a discussion, and if you're thinking about portal, you got 10 more days to officially sign the paper. Your coach puts it in, however all that works. So just to clarify there, but interesting that USC's game is the same day. So the number one question we'll be asking, Catch, for the USC spring game is obviously what? Did Bear Alexander play? There you go.
And look, is he going to continue to I don't get the sense that there is a refuting of, matter of fact, here, let me read this was a report from We Are SC on the rivals.com network. Quote, this was as of, it says, at this time, USC doesn't expect Bear to transfer. This was Monday, if I'm not mistaken. So this was the day before yesterday, obviously, when the announcement comes out. I won't make a claim it won't happen, but that's where it currently stands. There's a week until guys can officially enter anyway. The clear takeaway is USC wants Bear Alexander on the roster come August when fall camp begins. The situation has nothing to do with whether USC has enough money in its NIL coffers or not. Nothing. They have it. I also get that Bear hasn't dressed for several practices. Perhaps his effort or lack thereof deserve criticism. I don't know, as we don't watch practices, but that's a separate topic from the possibility that he'll enter the portal. There's quite a bit more I'm not at liberty to share, but it's none of our business anyway. And then the next day he hit the portal, or his intentions for hitting the portal came out. And so this is a good example. Like I said, this caught USC off guard. They've heard the buzz, but the program wasn't expecting this to happen, and now it's happened. And I think Bear's an interesting guy because he hasn't been arrested. He doesn't have any real problems. You don't hear he's tearing the locker room apart, or Georgia didn't want him to leave. USC doesn't want him to leave. What's the problem? The problem is he went to a bunch of high schools. The problem is now this would be his third college in 3 years. The problem for people is that he's a bit of a football mercenary. But in 2024, who isn't in college football a little bit of a mercenary? Was Adonai Mitchell not a mercenary? You mean there was he wanted to transfer and be closer to his family in Texas, but he also made a lot more NIL money than he was making at Georgia. And that caught, Georgia wanted to keep him. And why did he leave? And is it a bad thing to be a mercenary? Chad and I work for money. Chad and I love each other, but if it ever gets to a point where I'm like, Chad, can we just do this for free and hang out 5 days a week? Chad's got to pay bills. Is he a content producing mercenary? We don't think of it like that, but we all are looking out for number one we have to. So, I almost don't even know how to respond to this game that we're playing where Bear Alexander is being described in a different capacity to other players. He may be an extreme case, but the high school stuff, what is it my business if he goes to 4 different high schools? Did he graduate? Yes. Okay. What do I care? If he was at Denton Ryan and then went to IMG, that's none of my business. The only thing that people get upset about a lot of times with that stuff is that it's he's leaving the state of Texas to go play in the state of Florida, and we wish he would stay in Texas because he's a Texas guy. There's some real romanticism or just bullshit, somewhere in between the two things. At the end of the day, it feels like Sarkisian and his staff, from behind the scenes, what we're hearing, they don't feel like Bear Alexander is a disruptor to the culture. He's at a need. Makes a lot of sense.
Up over 450 in the Specs chat. We got a $5 super chat that we will get to. Longhorn Football Edits. We see you there. But real quick, I want to tell you about Taste on Main right down there in Buda. Look, I got an anniversary coming up, and my wife and I are not suit and dress people when it comes to anniversaries. We like to go out and celebrate, but we're not about stuffy dress code places. And if you see me out wearing a suit at a meal, something's up. Somebody's getting married or somebody died. That's probably why I'm doing that. But we found Taste on Main and we realized, hey, there's no dress code here. But you know what we love on a good anniversary meal? Just badass food. And that's what this is. These are the people that do Hayes City Store cranked up to steakhouse level. The steaks are awesome. The seafood is badass. The drinks are incredible. The bar areas are awesome. Got an inside bar, got that outside treehouse bar. It's just an incredible place. You can also check out the Nightcap. That's when the bar is open from 10 to midnight every Friday and Saturday. So we're going to go hit it for that anniversary meal. You go hit it for whatever you want. Could just be a get-together. It is just the perfect place to have a really, really good meal right there in beautiful downtown Buda. Taste on Main. Go check them out. All right, Catch, we did get a $5 super chat from Longhorn Football Edits. Thoughts on Bears' reason to portal, kind of where you just were, maybe better natty chances, and shameless plug for Longhorn Football Edits on all socials.
Volleyball clap for the shameless plug.
There you go. Nothing wrong with a shameless plug, but this gets back to what you were talking about. And I didn't realize, I'll admit, Catch, I didn't realize there were multiple high schools involved. I see that in one spot he's listed as from Terrell, Texas, up in the Dallas area. Then you're telling me there was a Denton school involved. And then IMG is also
he played
listed
high school, but he was a sophomore when Anthony Hill was a junior on a state championship Denton Ryan team.
Okay. And then ends up at IMG in Florida, which could explain why the proximity to Georgia might have happened. Obviously a lot closer there. But yeah, it's third team in 3 different years. Clearly, if it was about chance to win a national title, I think he started at a good spot. Like, wouldn't he have just stayed in Athens if that was the deal?
Yeah, look, man. Thoughts on Bears' reason? Like, I don't know that my thoughts matter. These guys all make decisions for different reasons. There are coaches in college football that have been to 6 schools in 6 years or change jobs all the time. And like, they got to do what they got to do. Rashad Samples just left Arizona State to go to Oregon. And, it's late. He recruited guys to Arizona State, and now it's late April or mid-April, and he's leaving to take another job. And like, I don't feel like the criticism is similar. And you know what? Bear Alexander will end up in a world in the NFL where 6 teams in 6 years happens for some guys. I mean, sometimes we don't ever ask that question when they get cut. Oh, man, why didn't that guy hang around with the practice squad? Well, because he got a chance to be on the 53-man roster, and, like, you take it. So I know it's different, and I know he's been to a bunch of high schools. But, if I was at Terrell, Texas, and I had a chance to go to Denton Ryan High School by any means necessary, no matter what position I played, one school is a hotbed and a magnet for college coaches, and the platform is just different. And then the very next year, you got a chance to go to IMG, where, again, kind of the same thing. I don't know Bears' reasoning, and I think there are probably a lot of cooks in the kitchen in terms of behind the scenes. But, I personally don't. Here's what I think about every kid that plays. I hope they're in the best situation for them. I hope they're able to go through this experience without any regrets, right? Like, oh, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done that. Those things haunt you your entire life. I mean, we're all normal people. We've got, I can remember being in Vegas on the Friday that Gladiator came out. And I went to go see Gladiator with my friend Matt and Chandra. And while I was in the movie theater, a stripper in Vegas who I'd given my number to the night before, who had been like a Playboy playmate, called me and wanted to go hang out. And I missed the call. And you know what? For 24 years, I remember it. If you say Las Vegas, I think of that situation. The regret's a hell of a thing. So I don't want kids to have regrets. And like, ultimately, like, I want them to have success. That's like it for every guy. And beyond that, I didn't care what Adonai Mitchell's reasons were for coming from Georgia to Texas. I didn't care what Jared Wiley's reasons were. We're going from Texas to TCU. These guys all got to do what they think is the best move for themselves. He's made more moves than most. But again, we're not talking about a guy that's making moves because he's been in trouble, right?
Right.
He doesn't even have like a Tavondre Sweat weekend DUI charge. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah, and like you said too, Catch, if Kirby Smart could have him tomorrow and if Lincoln Riley could have him tomorrow, they would both nod, right? They would both want him.
Yeah, look, a reporter from USC is giving direct intel on what he's hearing from people inside the program. They don't want him to leave.
Yeah, they're shocked.
Now, if he wants to leave, and there were conversations that we had on the modcast yesterday that throughout the last 4 months, it sounds like maybe he didn't have the best relationship in the world with the defensive tackle coach that was previously in place, but now there's a new defensive tackle who's the co-defensive coordinator. Maybe that's not what he signed up for. He went to USC to play for one guy. Turned out he didn't like that guy. Maybe there's just maybe he just wants to be in a different situation. He likely knows that he only has, what is it, April. He's got like 8 more months of college football to worry about. Bear Alexander sounds like a guy that's likely going to go to the NFL after this year. So he's even a completely different type of, he's not coming for a degree. He's coming to be football eligible, to play football, and Texas has a need at that position. And they do pretty well in terms of NIL deals, and it's back to the state of Texas. You know, it might just be that there's a bunch of little things that add up to a big thing. I just, you know, I push back against the notion that he's somehow a bad kid or a disruptive kid because he's moved around a bunch. You know, it happens. And he is a unique situation. Like, I'm not telling people they're wrong, like 6 schools in 6 years. But, you know, and I do think in each of the last 2 years he chased the NIL money. I do. But it doesn't sound like that's the issue here. Yeah. That for maybe the first time since he's been in college, maybe he's making a decision that's not NIL focused primarily. Because I think that's a big reason why. Look, his final 2 schools, if I'm not mistaken, in high school, it was A&M and Georgia. Neither of them are hurting for money. They each, what do I always tell you? Originally, the big 3 in NIL, and it's changed a little bit now, but it used to be that Georgia, A&M, and Texas were above everybody else. USC has improved on the NIL front. They went in 1 year from not completely paying Jordan Addison the money that they said that he would be able to get to their NIL platform is lifted as such that they were able to get Bear Alexander from Georgia. You know, like, yeah, the rich robbing the rich. And, you know, I think maybe for once the decision is based on something a little different. We'll see.
A lot of good chats have come in. Let's clean these off a little bit. We got an opinion here from Football Junkie. Bear will immediately make the interior D-line room better. Alan reminding everybody to smash the like button. Thank you, Alan, as always. Like, subscribe, get your notifications. Up over 560 folks in the Specs chat, but I'm guessing there's not 560 likes right now. So hit that like button. And Cotton, my favorite chat of the day so far. Portal window to the wall till the bear walks down these halls. Well done.
That's a much cleaner version of that song. Like that you could play on the radio.
You really could. That one you could play for your mom and be like, oh, that's cute.
Portal window to the wall till the bear walks down these halls. I get it. Yeah,
that's it. That's a catchy tune. And then you play Mom the original and she runs out of the room.
YouTube's going to hit us with like a copyright violation because I just sang that little ditty.
Yes. Well, it's because you nailed it. I mean, when you nailed it.
Yeah.
When you nail it at that level, they're coming after us. That's actually what it is. That is going to happen.
I'm going to get that notification that says we played a copyrighted song. And it's like, well, no, that's not quite what happened. But yeah, we'll demonetize the video, YouTube. Sure.
We are going to get it. More questions coming in on this Bear Alexander thing. We'll get to those here in just a second. Real quick, remind you about sinus and snoring specialists. I had another great night's sleep last night. So did my wife, because we've both been to sinus and snoring specialists. All the allergy stuff, craziness. Hey, the weather was nuts where I live yesterday. And for a lot of you, it was the same way. Those rainstorms show up. The hail shows up. It goes from being pretty dry to really, really wet and back and forth. And it messes with you. If you've got all that crazy pollen in the air, and maybe you're cedar like I was, they can get rid of your allergies. They can get you sleeping better. They can get rid of that snoring issue, sleep apnea, all that stuff. If you let that stuff get worse, it can cause some really serious problems. But if you get it taken care of, trust me, you're going to be feeling a lot better. There's your QR code. Check them out. 601-0303. SinusSnoringENT.com is the website. It is sinus and snoring specialist. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. And Longhorn fans wanting that defensive line room to get even more healthy with a Bear Alexander. Let's see what this one is, Catch. Kind of a long one from Jordan. Has anyone actually heard anything about his character or him being bad for a program? I haven't, other than he chooses money over commitment to a program. I have never heard anything bad.
Jordan, it's the mercenary part. Like it is, you have to keep in mind, we're still in a transition period in college football. Not every fan likes NIL. Not every fan or administrator likes players getting paid. And there's a romantic concept that I want guys that want to go to Texas. Not everybody's Corey Redding. Corey Redding, on the day he committed to Texas, told his mother, who was upset because she wanted him to go to Arizona and play with his brother. And he said, Mom, ever since we moved here, when I guess a hurricane had hit Florida and they moved to Texas, he's like, I want to go to school in Texas, and I want to meet my future wife in Texas, and I want to have Texas babies. Like, that is a fantastic promo. It's a fantastic promo, but not everybody's like that. And I think there's some people struggle with that. Some people feel like this is so new that it makes me not like the sport. And there are other people who are like, Eric Dickerson was getting multiple Trans Ams, back in the late 70s. And this has been what the sport has been for decades. And now it's transparent, and I like it. And most people, I think, are in between the two. No, there's nothing about his character that I think is terrible, other than, yeah, man, it may be fair to call him a football mercenary. But is that a bad thing? Because Texas doesn't get to the playoffs last year without transfers. And why did all of those players transfer? Well, they all had slightly different reasons, but they all enjoyed the extra NIL that came with it. They did. And if Adonai Mitchell doesn't get Texas NIL dollars, his decision could have quite possibly looked completely different. So we don't talk about Adonai Mitchell like that. When he gets drafted in the first or second round in a couple of weeks, Texas fans won't go, I never liked Adonai because he only came here for the money. No, you'll love it that he scored touchdowns, that he was a good player. We have a tough time reconciling our hypocrisies at time. One guy's NIL is different than another guy's NIL. And I think again, he's such an extreme case because it does go back to high school with changing schools. That I think people got it from high school, right? Because when he went to Denton Ryan, there was a lot of discussion about he's only there to play football. Does he even live in the district? How are they making that happen? And then he goes to IMG. And then anybody who goes to IMG is kind of thought to be a mercenary. It's like, oh, that guy's majoring in football. He's literally going to a school specifically because of the football angle of it. But no, man, there's nothing about this kid that I don't think Steve Sarkisian thinks he can handle. Now, if Bear Alexander decided he wasn't going to the NFL after this year and he was going to play a fourth year of college football, all bets are off. Like, he may not stick around. Like, that's the thing. There's a guy in this industry, Chad, in the recruiting industry, because everybody's worked everywhere, basically. If you're like a recruiting reporter, you've worked at 24/7 and Rivals and On3 and ESPN and team sites. You've done a little bit of everything. Sometimes when you hire a guy, man, like, I'm going to get good work while we're here, but he probably will leave in like 5 months. And sometimes you're like, I'll take the 5 months. I'll take 6 months of like really good work. It's probably going to end uncomfortably, but sometimes that going in. And, I think that we've all got to continue to get used to the idea he's probably not going to be the last guy that plays at 3 colleges in 3 years.
Yeah, that's true. Thanks to that, Jordan, for a chat. Thanks to Jordan, this one, for a super chat, $4.99. Thank you, Jordan. Makes sense for him to come here, first year in the SEC, and the high expectations. There's going to be a lot of eyes on this team. Just think about the way both these teams are headed to new conferences, but the USC one it's weird it's got to be strange. If you're going out to USC, you're thinking about the rivalry with UCLA, but you got to also be thinking a West Coast vibe. You're about to enter a conference where you and UCLA and a couple others, I know you got the Oregon and Washington as well, but you guys are now reaching over into the Midwest. And I mean, I'm sure he didn't go to USC thinking about the big house or Penn State. But now he can think about more of the, Texas obviously much more regional to the SEC, and having the Texas history there, maybe he can think of, oh, wait a minute, I'll do what I did originally. I'll go to the SEC, to a team I feel like is pretty badass and has a shot, just made a playoff, and I get all that. I kind of get all the best of all worlds.
I had a buddy of mine once that moved in with a girl. He was in love. And within like 15 minutes of moving in together, he was like, I have made a big mistake.
15 minutes?
Oh, yeah. He was moving in. And as he was moving they didn't get married, by the way.
Well, I would hope not.
I bring this up because I can remember Tommy Harris, the former OU All-American NFL first-round draft pick. I think Tommy Harris still has enough cachet from his career that people will recognize the name. Former SI cover boy back in the day when being an SI cover boy mattered. I'll never forget. He signs with Oklahoma. He goes to Oklahoma for a spring practice, and he got cussed out by the line coach. And Tommy Harris called me up and was like, I'm transferring.
Wow.
Transferring from Oklahoma. He was so upset how he'd been talked to by one of the assistant coaches. He called Texas.
Damn.
Said, I want to transfer to Texas. And Texas was like, Tommy, you can't call us. You can't. You got to go handle your business. We cannot have this call. Tommy Harris went like all the way through the summer thinking he wanted to transfer so bad. And I told him at the time, Tommy, man, you're going to look like a clown. The people are going to they're going to question your character if you don't even show up. They're going to, if they hear that you're upset because you got yelled at a little bit, you just got to know how this is going to look. I was like, because Tommy and I talked, I was like, Tommy, you need to just get your ass to Oklahoma and make it happen. And if after a year you still feel the same way, do it, because he didn't want to sit out.
Right.
Was the thing. And he was like, I want to transfer. And it's like, well, you can't transfer now without sitting out a year. So why would you do that? And I tell that story because you never know. Look, guys go to school for reasons, and then the reasons why they go to those schools change. Previously, those guys had no options. Tommy Harris, back in the day, didn't have options. These dudes have options now. Yeah. And if a little thing like the position coach changed and I'm not really vibing with him, so I'd rather go someplace else, trust me, it's as good of reason as a lot of the ones that I'll hear. We all got to remember, these still are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. They have agents and they have representatives, and sometimes they don't listen to either of them. So, I just know this. We're not talking about, look, Texas took Ajay Hall 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And at Alabama, Ajay Hall had been a disruptor. Such a disruptor that Saban was can't deal with it anymore. This staff at Texas went and took Ajay Hall through the transfer portal. They knew he was a disruptor. They said, we'll make it work. We can handle it. We know Ajay Hall. And in the end, they couldn't. And what happened? He left. And I think the thing that we need to know about Bear Alexander is if he's a disruptor at all, he'll be gone. He'll be gone, and he'll be gone in the middle of a contract year when this season, Bear Alexander on the field and off the field needs to be the best version of himself. It's funny. A year ago, one of our posters on our long 68, one of our longtime posters, when Bear transferred, he said, we don't need Bear now. We need the third transfer because that's the contract year. That's when, in theory, you're getting the best version of that guy. What was funny at why I tell that story is yesterday he bumped or he copied and pasted his comments from a year ago where he basically said, this is when we need Bear Alexander. I think Steve Sarkisian may agree with him.
There you go. That's great. Jordan, thank you for that super chat. Let's clean off some other chats. We may have a new source. Catherine says, from what I hear, it's already a done deal. By the way, Catherine, from what I can tell, nice picture. Also from Catherine,
I can't tell. She looks like an ant, right? Because it's so small on the screen.
Looks like a pretty good looking ant.
She's got the blonde hair thing going.
Yeah.
I have no idea really what she looks like. By the way, sorry, Catherine, that we are judging you. But blonde hair makes guys go, oh, we see blonde hair from 6,000 feet away. And we're like, oh, she looks good.
Absolutely.
Blonde hair thing.
No doubt. Catherine, a lot of Longhorn fans hoping you are right that he could be the guy and be a great guy. I like this one too, Catch, from the Rational Texan. A mercenary that keeps getting hired means they're getting the job done. That could be true. Here are the number comparisons, Catch. He went to Georgia he went from 9 tackles to 47 in that year. So if you're wondering, did he develop?
He was productive last year.
Yeah. Did he do anything? Yes, he did. 27 solos, 20 assisted tackles. To compare, Trey Moore had 45 tackles at UTSA. Obviously a different position, interior versus, on the end, but the same basic number of tackles. He only had 1.5 sacks, did Bear Alexander, Catch, but I'll give him credit for this. 1.5 sacks for 30 yards lost. So if you're going to maximize one of those sacks, or maybe it was cut in half, but at least one of those sacks was exciting and the quarterback really screwed up.
Like Bob Roy chasing Bob Greasy in the Super Bowl. He just kept running around going backwards.
Yeah, apparently Bear Alexander threw at least one quarterback like 10 to 15 yards backwards at least. So Rational Texan, it's a good point. And then this says Bear does still have a little work to do to catch JT Daniels. That's true.
You know what? That is true though.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, Catch. Like some guys, it's weird. Some guys they get a reputation. JT Daniels or Brew McCoy or whoever it happens to be. Well, my man's just a traveler. He just likes moving around. Maybe that's what it is with Bear. Catch. Maybe Bear is more of a potted plant than he is a planted tree. He just wants to stay in the pot so he's easily movable.
If he were just a potted plant, I'm telling you, it's the money. It's the money that people have a problem with. And
yeah,
I get it. Look, the thing is, I understand it. Because again, we want to buy into the romanticism. If Texas A&M, look, think about how Jimbo Fisher reacts back in the day to the idea that A&M players were going there for money. How dare you? How dare you? He scolded the media for asking a question about it, and because there was like a negative affiliation with taking money.
Right. And all he had to do was lean forward and say, you're damn right.
You're damn right they're coming here for NIL dollars. And if you're a 5-star player out there.
Yeah. And the reason Nick said it is because Nick wishes he could buy teams like we just did. Next question. That's what it should have been. But you're right. He freaked out. It was there's such sensitivity to it.
And look, Sark does a real good job of saying, well, there are lots of reasons guys come to Texas. But in this NIL world, we want to be at the top of that too. But just a year earlier, Jimbo was scared to death at the idea that people would think guys came to College Station because they were getting paid a lot of money. Whereas, like you said, he should have leaned into that. Well, yeah. In fact, we're number one in the nation in NIL. And then, like, make that quote go out on every little piece of literature that you send to every kid in recruiting.
Yeah. And by the way, Catch, remember the evolution of that. Remember last year when it was Kirby Smart and Mark Stoops that got in a similar back and forth, and Kirby answered the right way. Kirby did exactly what he should have done. He said, look, I get what he's saying. We've all got this, we've got that. And he's trying to help his collective like I'm trying to help my club. He laid it all out perfectly, and it was disarmed in a second. It was like one of those movies where if you threw a grenade at the guy, he actually had a pocket full of pins. Like he never moved. He just went, oh, here, let me put the pin in it and set it back down. We're good. And then everybody moved on.
So I think, look, that's the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is that the people, fans, still kind of view NIL in the way that Jimbo did like 18 months ago. Like, I think we need to be able to acknowledge that not enough time has truly occurred in between all of this where it's settled into comfort. So you've got a portion of people who are at one extreme, you've got a portion who are at the other, and then in the middle, you've got confused people who they haven't maybe even reconciled. It's subconscious. Mm-hmm. Like they don't know why they've got a negative reaction to a guy who wants to get paid the most amount of money possible. Like they know they don't like it, but they can't really explain it either. Because if you say, well, you like to make the most amount of money possible too, right? It's like, oh, well, yeah. And then a lot of times it turns into, you know what, though? It'd have been my dream to be able to go play for free at my favorite college. Like, I would have done that for free. And it's like, okay, but you weren't talented enough, so you didn't. And these people who have the skill sets that put them in that position, they feel different than you do.
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to reconcile, like, one person thinks things it's like left and right in terms of like voting, right? It's like, oh, I can't even imagine why that person thinks the way they do. I think there's just a little bit of that here. It's just in 5 years from now, 10 years from now, Bear Alexander will maybe potentially look like Kurt Flood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you may be right.
Back and they'll go, he was the first guy that really had it figured out. Or maybe in 10 years, there will still be people who are like, I don't like it, and I'd rather not have it happen. But I think by then we'll have enough time that it will have marinated, and maybe we know why we feel the way we do. But nobody's ever said Bear Alexander is a criminal. He's a bad guy that doesn't get along with others.
Right.
That's never been the thing.
All right, we're going to wrap up by 1 o'clock today here on House Divided. So we're trying to get a couple more chats in. Also, real quick, we want to let you hear and see from AV Consultations. Tom does have an idea for what you can do with your wife. But before that, he's going to tell you about all kinds of cool stuff they can do.
Hi, this is Tom McKay with Audiovisual Consultations. Today's home electronics can be a bit daunting. My company has spent the last 36 years making sure they are not. For those of you who have not experienced our services yet, we'd like to invite you to give us a try for all your home electronics needs. We carry all the major brands of televisions and stereo equipment at prices you can't find in stores. And we come to you. There's no need to leave your home to find great pricing and incomparable service. No traffic, inexperienced sales geeks, or pushy showroom tactics. We believe in having some fun and dreaming big. You have a dream for your home entertainment? Let us know. We can make it come true. And we are always there to help after the job is done. We cultivate clients for a lifetime by treating everyone like their family. No, not those family members. I'm talking about the ones you actually like. So relax, hug your kids, make love to your wife, and smile. Then, when you have a moment, give us a call at 255-8678. That's 512-255-8678. Or online at avconsultations.com.
All right, Catch, before we hit the door, you want to hit buy or sell?
My attention every time I hear it. I'm like thinking about other things, and I never miss that part of the spot.
It always works. It always works. You want to go first or second today?
I'll go first today. Buy or sell number one. Bear Alexander is a no-brainer for you if you're Texas?
I think that is a buy, especially based on the room we're talking about. Yeah, badass interior D lineman, improved over that second year. Texas ties. Yes, absolutely.
Buy or sell number 2. Mel Kiper has 3 Longhorns going in the first round of his updated mock draft. Here, I'll read them out to you real quick. He's got Byron Murphy going 18 to Cincinnati. He's got Xavier Worthy going 23 to the Chargers. And then he's got Adonai Mitchell going, where has he got? 29th to the Lions.
Gotcha.
I think that might be one too many.
Yeah, I'm going to buy and hope I can reverse jinx this thing. Every time I look at these mocks, I think, man, one of those receivers is going to slide out. Just one. Or, things will slide down a little further with Murphy and it'll slide one guy out. So I'm going to buy the idea. I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to have it. Everybody that's been checking out the short videos knows I want the Longhorns to make crazy history and get all these players drafted in different rounds. But yeah, I'll buy that.
I will say Worthy to the Chargers and Mitchell to the Lions. Those would be good spots to land in.
Mm-hmm.
You got your no quarterback issues. The line, I'd like to kind of maybe even see that happen. Buy or sell number 3. You can tell me the current records of both the Braves and the Rangers.
Sell.
We're a little week plus in, and
Sell. I'm assuming they both have winning records. That's about all I could tell you.
I can tell you the Phillies record, but I don't know at what point that stops.
Right. Nah,
you're just like, they're like 5 games over.
Generally what I do catch is I check in. I probably start looking at the standings like in May. I'll do like a May standings check, see how everybody's doing. That's about all.
I have to look in April because I'm worried that the Braves will run away from the Phillies before we get to May.
Nah, that's fair.
Buy or sell number 4. Scott Drew would be a good hire for Kentucky.
Buy. Absolutely. I think it's a really interesting idea. He's respected for being a really good basketball coach, and he is also respected for some key reasons that in this version of college basketball, he'd be a good fit wearing blue. I think Kentucky fans and the Scott Drew mindset would marry up pretty well.
He can coach Alabama football too.
Yep. Maybe at the same time.
I heard, I'm like you when it's said out loud. It's like, like them two fit together like peanut butter and jelly.
Yep. Absolutely.
And just read between the lines, folks, if you need to. Yep. And finally, buy or sell number 5. Beyonce's new album gets an A.
There's definitely some A material on that album. For me, I'm going to sell. I'm a music snob in a lot of ways. There's a couple tweaks that could make it an A album for me. There's A songs on it. I think it's a B album.
I think it's a masterpiece, but you know what? That's why we love music. We don't always have to agree.
There you go. All right, here we go, Catch. Buy or sell number 1. The title of the old fashioned today was Time to Worry About Longhorn Wide Receiver Jonte Cook. As the president of the fan club, you say no.
Buy. Worry? I mean, we can acknowledge that he needs to be more consistent, but as a founding member of the fan club, I'll continue to point out it's got like 20 practices. And I bet before the end of August, before depth charts are made, I don't even know that I worry about Jonte Cook before the games start. Like maybe he's a gamer. Maybe he's a guy that when the lights come on is a better player than he is a practice player. I'm not worried about Jonte Cook.
All right. Buy or sell number 2, Ryan Wingo, 16 plus catches in 24.
Buy. I don't know what the number is, but I'm going to go higher than 16 for sure.
There you go. That would be twice the Jonte Cook number from last year if he hits 16. Catch, buy or sell number 3. Oates, Hurley, and Donovan have said no. You think it could be Scott Drew, and it would be a good move for Kentucky.
This is the perfect example of how you know we don't peek at each other's questions before we do this, because it's essentially the same question.
Yeah.
And I offered my opinion on it already, which if I knew he had a Scott Drew question coming, I'd have been like, nice thoughts, Chad. Maybe I'll give you mine in a second. I do. I think that Scott Drew, I think he's done everything at Baylor that he can do. So now, if he was ever going to make a move, now's the time, I think, maybe to make a move. And I do think he's perfect for Kentucky. I think he will do for and at Kentucky what Kentucky, I think, expects their head basketball coach to do.
And you can also tell, Catch, and I've been talking about this Beyonce record. Buy or sell number 4, Catch, Beyonce's Cowboy Carter album, better than Renaissance.
Now, this is where I think it gets really interesting, because I think now you're measuring A versus A, and it gets really subjective.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say buy.
Okay.
Because when I finished listening to Renaissance for the first time, I was like, that's a great album. Beyonce knocked it out of the park. When I finished Cowboy Carter, I found myself saying, I have never heard anybody do that album before. Now, that doesn't have to mean necessarily that it's great. You could say that and it'd be terrible, right? I ain't never heard an album like that before, and it could have negative connotations. I don't love everything on the album, but boy, there are a lot of great albums that, have some throwaways on them. I'm going to say it's better than Renaissance for the reason of creatively. I just think she's doing things in Cowboy Carter that I've never heard before. And a lot of them I really, really like.
There you go. And finally, Catch, a weird one for you. Buy or sell number 5. Today is Don Meredith's birthday. Rest in peace. You can tell me where he went to high school.
I should just say Highland Park, because all those old guys went to Highland Park. Isn't he a New Mexico guy? I don't know where he went to high school.
He is not. Catch, it's a great example of how something bad could make me learn something good. Don Meredith went to Mount Vernon High School, and I didn't find that out until Art Briles went to Mount Vernon High School, and I found out they named that stadium after, of course, Don Meredith, their most famous guy. So when Mount Vernon plays football, they do it at Don Meredith Stadium. How about that?
I wish I had been able to experience the Don Meredith era.
Right.
And I wished I had, and that means both in football and Monday Night Football. And I also wish I had been able to see North Dallas 40 when it first came out, when everything would have made sense, because you'd have been able to properly associate who is supposed to be who. He's one of the few characters in North Dallas 40 where you know who you're supposed to be looking at in that movie. But I love Danny Don.
All right, Catch, do you have time for a couple rapid fire chats real quick? Okay. First off, Catherine becoming more important says he's taking a hit with NIL coming to Texas. Speaking of Bear.
Catherine, I'm going to put you on the staff.
Catherine says, I've spoken with his brand manager today. We got to get Catherine on the show. Someone says Catherine needs to join this video ASAP. Xavier, we agree with you.
Catherine.
Let's get Catherine on. Come
on,
Catherine.
Do you want to be a guest on the show tomorrow?
Come on, Catherine.
If you want to be as a guest and join us for the show, we'll bring you in. Just yes or no.
There you go. Jump in.
I'm not even looking at the Specs chat right now because I had the buy or sell questions on. So
if you want, you double check the chat and see if Catherine responds. I'm going to throw up one more for you real quick, Catch.
I can.
Yes?
She says, and she says, I can provide receipts. And then she hit yes, all capital letters.
There
Catherine.
All right,
here's what I'm going to do, Catherine. Here is my email address. I'm going to put it in the chat. Just hit me up.
There it is. Catch says, I missed the modcast yesterday. Maybe you covered it. Does Bear project as a nose or a 3-tech?
I think he's a 3-tech.
Okay. There
you go. I think if they were to get Mr. Grant, I think you could probably play him in both, though. I think, they have needs at both. So depending on what else they do in the portal, it might be, how do you pair him with Alfred Collins? Where do you best think Alfred Collins is positioned? And then you can do the same thing. I will say what I heard about Catherine is exactly right. I think will take an NIL hit by coming from Texas to USC. Like I said, the thing that I had heard about the Texas situation is there's a level that he'll have to be comfortable with because they don't want to completely disrupt everything they've got going with the team. It would make a ton of sense.
There you go, Chad. We appreciate the chat. All right, Catch has got to run, so we're going to close the doors here. Thanks to Catherine for giving us some info, and maybe she's on the show tomorrow. That's awesome. Coming up later on in the recruiting hour, Jason Sukamel back from New York in his trip to the Yankee game, but with the latest information. He talked to Michael Fasusi yesterday after the visit to Texas. We'll get you the latest on that, everybody that was visiting this weekend and what Jason's hearing. And Jason, like Catch and a lot of others, is really starting to swing towards Texas when it comes to Decory and more. We'll get into all that in the 4 o'clock hour. Tonight on The Outsiders at 8:30, Jeff Ketchum scheduled to appear at 9 o'clock.
It's going to happen tonight because I got to put this to bed.
You gotta get it done. We will see if Catch joins us tonight at 9 for The Outsiders. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications. We're up over 700 in the Specs chat as we get ready to close the door. Until 12 noon tomorrow for the next show, where we might be talking to Catherine. That could be cool. We are House Divided.